When you don't have a voice, art's how you express yourself. And that applies to all cultures, but especially Black American culture. It's been through art that our story's been reflected. The resilience, the setbacks, the joys, and the hopes.
My grandfather bragged all the time that he had read the Bible through 5 times from cover to cover. And it was illegal in his life to read. And it was illegal for white people to teach Black kids to read. But ultimately, I knew that words have power.
I first picked up Toni Morrison's novels when I was just entering college. Her voice changed me. She became one of my heroes, somebody who helped me understand myself and the world around me. I was lucky enough to get to know her later in her life. This is where she was as much a poet as a prose writer. And she brought an intensity to that world even beneath obvious meaning that gave all her novels an extra force, an extra power. How she worked that magic is something that I can't completely describe because that's what it was magic. One of the lines that always stuck with me was her belief that language arcs toward the place where meaning might lie. When she wrote a story, it seemed as if she was tapping into something that went beyond just the intellectual understanding of language and plot. She was able to locate her stories specifically to the African American community, and yet, as all the best writers do, create universal meaning in those narratives. And that's what art at its best can do.
When it comes to life-changing storytellers, Frederick Douglass is definitely a cultural oak. But he's just one tree in an expansive literary forest. You see, he isn't the beginning of our relationship with the written word. Whether it be the hieroglyphs of ancient Egypt or even the Adinkra symbols of the Akan people, we have always used some form of written language through letter or character to document our existence. And over time, as we found ourselves in places that worked to deny our lives, our written testament became one of our greatest weapons. Though there were prominent Black writers in the early 1900s, nothing could prepare America for what was coming in the 1920s. The Harlem Renaissance. This movement was as bustling as the city that birthed it and would change literature forever. There was a freedom in Harlem. And you know what you do when you feel like you're free? Whatever you want, but mostly you tell the truth. So writers like Richard Wright and Langston Hughes and Zora Neale Hurston began to write the different versions of Black life. The good stuff, the not so good stuff, you know, the human stuff. And with each story, each poem, each play, our voices grew bolder, bigger, braver. We'd see this again during the Black arts movement of the 60s and 70s, where Black power became a refrain, where poets shifted and shaped the new Black stance with a new Black stanza, where the novelists and playwrights spun our world onto pages and stages with precision and rebellion and love. But seriously, what's precision, rebellion, and love without laughter? What's telling our stories if we can't make light of our struggles, not because our struggles are light, but because there's always light to be found there? And so with the influx of all these poets came the influx of all these comedians. Street philosophers who could turn reality on its head for ha-ha and aha moments. So yeah, we write stories, been writing them. And we write jokes, been writing those too. We write poems, and we write plays. We write shows, we write sermons, and we write essays. We write and write and write ourselves into the world, sometimes punctuated, sometimes not. Sometimes misspelled and messy, sometimes in gorgeous calligraphy. Either way, we write ourselves as unerasable.
My favorite book growing up, I can name it off the top because I've read it a million times, Black Boy by Richard Wright. I read it and I didn't think it was, I was like, this can't be real. This is what real life is. But by that age, I had already started having interactions because of race. And that book was like the first time, other than my family, I was like, yo, Black people all over the country are going through stuff and this is what we go through. And it kind of connected me to my Blackness.
I Don't Want to Die Poor by Michael Arsenault is like a dope collection of, you know, stories and essays and stuff like that. He makes these like kind of like sad situations, like, you know, student loan debt and like, you know, everyday problems, like finds humor in them.
When I first started acting, I discovered A Raisin in the Sun by Lorraine Hansberry. There's so many wonderful Black playwrights. I just really admire Black women who are fearless. I love those women for making a space for me. I think the most powerful word in the English language is the word no, because no is a full sentence. It's also one word. We spend a lot of time trying to explain to people why you're saying no, but you don't have to. You can truly just say, no, and that's the end of the sentence.
The word that has the most power in the English language is yes.
I think the word that has the most power in the human language is help. It's such a powerful word. It's one of the hardest words for people to say. It's hard because of pride and because of some situations for people to ask for help.
I think I realized how powerful words can be when I said the word bitch in front of my mother and she was like, what did you say? And I was like, oh, she mad at me.
I realized the power of words very early on with my jokes and with my impressions and whatever. My dad would make me get up, do impersonations of all of my uncles in their various stages of drunkenness.
Being funny can save your life sometimes because I was in the Bronx House of Detention. I was in a 40-man cell. And you know what? Those people got the tightest 2 days of comedy I've ever done in my life. I tell you what. Because that's what you gotta do. We're just sitting there, ain't no TV, so I'm cracking jokes. And I just remember people were just like, they were like, yo, you're funny, I'm gonna keep my eye out for you. Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention I learned the power of words from where? Hip hop,
Real hip-hop,
real
you know what I'm
hip-hop.
saying?
You know that, you're. Shout out to Nas. First time I heard Illmatic, I was like,
Whoa.
yo, the lyrics.
Whoa.